everybody and welcome back to my channel. So I tried to make this video back in May, a video like the 20 things I no longer buy, and it didn't really work out because I realized that pretty much everything I was talking about was clothing items. I actually still had that recording, so I went back and made some notes and I decided to redo that video and talk about the clothing items that I no longer buy. So the first clothing item that I no longer buy is things that need ironing. And I know that I'm personally too lazy to iron clothes. Getting an iron board, getting an iron, setting it up, it's just not something I'm gonna do. A really good example is these pants, and they're very, very creased. And I bought them to wear as like, kind of like a dressier type pant, but they don't look dressy because they're always creased. Going back in time, I wouldn't buy these again. I now wear these as like my beach pants over like a swimsuit because I don't mind if they're creased that way. I know I could just get a steamer, but I'm a little bit traumatized by steamers because I once did a shoot where a stylist ironed a jumper while it was on me with like a steamer, and I ended up with a massive burn mark here and I still have the scar. So yeah, I'm a bit traumatized by steamers. One day I'll probably get a steamer, but right now anything that needs ironing of any kind, not for me. The next clothing item that I no longer buy is athletic or athleisure clothes. I went through a stage definitely where athleisure was kind of a thing and I was buying athletic clothes, and also this was about 2 years ago when I did have a gym membership, and I was mostly walking on the treadmill. I wasn't even really working out, but I needed athletic clothes, and so I was buying athletic clothes, but I don't look good in athletic clothes. I don't feel like my best self in them, and I finally accepted that I'm not the workout kind either. And for being honest, I haven't actually exercised in 2 years since I had that gym membership, but we don't have a car, so I walk a lot every day. I walk everywhere. So I can just wear my regular dresses and the clothes that make me feel good. If I ever need athletic clothes, I do have 2 or 3 sets and I don't need any more than that. So growing up, I was only allowed to buy things that were either on sale or cheap. And it took until I was in university and I studied psychology to work out why that was. My mum growing up had obsessive compulsive disorder, and I remember learning about OCD in uni, and basically it means people with OCD are very careful with money. It's very hard for them to part with money. And I knew this about my mum. I knew that if an item of clothing was not on sale or it wasn't already really cheap, there was no point asking. I just wasn't gonna get it. So I had learnt when I walked into a shop to always go straight to the sale section, or to always walk into shops that everything was under a certain amount, because then I had a chance of being able to get it. So I'm definitely very aware of that now, and I no longer shop sales just to buy things because they're cheap. The next item of clothing that I no longer buy is work clothes. So I had an office job last year, and when I started my office job, I had no like corporate attire, nothing of that sort, because when I'd left my previous corporate job, I'd gotten rid of all of it because I realized that that wasn't my style. Instead of going and buying new corporate wear for my new job, I actually just wore all my regular clothes. And it's interesting because I recently saw Anna Wintour was asked, how should you dress for a job interview? How should you dress for work? And she said, as yourself. And I love that. You might stand out a little bit at first, especially if your style is like mine. Like I wear super feminine floaty dresses, but eventually I felt like it actually inspired other people to become more themselves. Kind of became known for my fashion in the office, and even my boss would say, oh, I look forward to seeing what you're gonna wear in the morning. It was amazing. It was like I got to bring my personality to my work, and because of that I felt like I was better at my job because I wasn't compromising who I was to be there. Then when that job contract ended, I didn't have to get rid of any of my clothes. I hadn't bought anything specifically for that job, so there was no waste. I had one wardrobe, it was an Erica wardrobe, and I could just wear those things all the time. The next clothing item that I no longer buy is items that are not 100% comfortable. That goes for dresses, that goes for tops, that goes for bras, shoes, anything that isn't 100% comfortable straight away. I know that if I have things in my wardrobe that are more comfortable than this thing, why would I buy this thing? The exception being if it's got something small to it that I could alter that would then make it comfortable. This dress is a really good example of that. So it's kind of like a wrap dress, but the zip is actually here, so you don't need the wrap part to actually get into the dress. So this was a beautiful dress and it's super comfortable on me, apart from the fact that it would blow up whenever I would walk and whenever there'd be wind. It would blow up all the way up to here, and I would just be completely exposed at the front. I just put a couple of stitches in it here, and I've done this on several dresses of this style. Now I'm totally comfortable wearing it, and I wear it all the time. So anything that's not completely comfortable from the get-go, or I know it's a super easy fix that I'm definitely willing to do for the item, I won't buy it. The next clothing item that I no longer buy is anything that feels cheap. And I know now that for me, anything that feels cheap, I'm not going to wear over things that I have that the fabric just feels nicer on my skin. I blame my Taurus ascendant and Venus being in Taurus in my chart as well, because I do love luxury fabrics. I love things that feel luxurious and high quality. And when I have items like that, if I buy something that's not like that, it's just not going to get worn as much. So I buy items that feel really luxurious on my skin because I'm a very tactile person, and that's really important to me. The next clothing item that I no longer buy is things that I'm unsure about. So if I have to ask, should I get that? If I'm not certain, then it's probably no. So my new rule is, if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a no. And it's so hard being a Gemini and changing my mind all the time. Shopping with me is impossible. I feel so bad if anyone's ever shopped with me. I've had so many moments of indecisiveness, and I finally learned that for me, if it's not a fuck yes, it is a no. And the great thing is, in this modern day and age, is you don't have to worry about really missing out on something, because you've never really missed out. If you truly were meant to have something and you did miss out because you were thinking about it and you weren't sure at the time, it's probably going to turn up on eBay somewhere, either in the near future or in the far future. So I know for me, I would rather think about something and miss out on it and then know it wasn't meant to be, or pick it up later somewhere secondhand, rather than buy it and then regret buying it. Like for me, there is nothing worse than buying something on an impulse and regretting buying it. I definitely think about things, and it has to be a fuck yes, or it's a no. The next clothing that I no longer buy is occasion specific clothing. So I found that the very best way to shop is to shop intuitively from your soul. For example, in 2018, I was thrifting in a charity shop in Melbourne, and I found this ball gown that I absolutely fell in love with. I had absolutely no way to wear that at the time, but I was so inspired by it, I decided I would buy it anyway because my soul was really called to it. And then what ended up happening was, last year, I did get invited to a ball, and I didn't have to go out and find a ball gown to wear to that ball because I had that dress. So that dress ended up being worn, but I also knew I just loved that dress. It brought me joy. So it was a good idea to purchase it then. And I think sometimes our soul knows what's coming up for us on the path. So if you're ever drawn to something and you're like, I don't have an occasion to wear that right now, maybe that occasion is coming up for you and you're going to need it. So shop from your soul rather than for a specific event. So if I have a wedding or a formal event, now I usually have something because I do shop intuitively and I buy things that I love when I come across them. But if I got to the point that I didn't have something, I wouldn't go out now and buy a specific dress for that wedding, because then it also becomes associated with that wedding. So I'm also less likely to re-wear it, because in my mind I'm like, oh, I bought that for this wedding, and I associate that reason with wearing that dress. So now if an occasion comes up and I don't have something, I would just rent. And I definitely recommend renting a dress for an occasion if you don't already have something. The next thing I no longer buy is trend pieces. Definitely in the past, I would have bought a trend piece if I liked it, and then maybe in a year's time no one's wearing that and so it didn't get worn anymore. Like going back to my fast fashion days, probably 10 years ago, I would have done that for sure. Now, if I'm ever interested in a trend or curious about it, I actually will go to a shop, somewhere like Zara, that's got that trend piece, and I'll just try it on, and I won't buy it, but I'll try it on, and I'll kind of get the experience of wearing it without actually having to buy it, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes me crazy, but I'm trying to build a forever wardrobe. I'm trying to buy things I will still be wearing in 20 years time. I know that trend pieces usually I wouldn't end up liking 12 months from now, so I don't buy them, I just kind of experience them. The final clothing item that I no longer buy is I no longer buy items new where I can buy the exact same item secondhand and it's cheaper. So if I've fallen in love with a dress that is current season, I will go onto eBay, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, somewhere like that. Usually all those places actually. Find out the name of the dress and I will search it, because sometimes someone could have bought that dress last week. They might have worn it for an occasion on the weekend and then they might not want it anymore. And I just want it as a forever piece. This happened last year as well. There was a dress that was current season. Shona Joy at David Jones, and I fell in love with it, and it was just out of my price range, and I was like thinking, you know, maybe I'll save for it and buy it in a few weeks. I was on Facebook Marketplace and I literally saw someone selling it in my size, and they had literally just bought it like in the last week or two, worn it for one event, and they'd also bought the short version, so they didn't need the long version anymore. So they were selling it. So they'd worn it once, it was in perfect condition, and it was more than 50% off the price if I was to go and buy it at David Jones. So that was amazing. So now I've learnt that if I do love something, to first search if I can buy it in my size, if it's available, anyone selling it secondhand, because if they are, that's better for the environment, that's better for me financially. So I definitely check first before I will buy it new from the actual brand. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful to somebody, and please let me know your thoughts in the comment section.